This experiment determines the molecular weight of a polymer by measuring its viscosity. The polymer we will use today is polyvinyl alcohol. And we have a stock solution of 1.5% WV polyvinyl alcohol available. First, students should prepare polyvinyl alcohol solutions of various concentrations by diluting the stock solution by half. First, pour approximately 50 milliliters of the stock solution into a beaker. Then, using a 50 milliliter pipette, pipette the polyvinyl alcohol solution. Into a 100 milliliter volumetric flask. After, pipette the polyvinyl alcohol solution from the stock solution. Dilute it with distilled water up to the volume mark on the volumetric flask. When preparing the polyvinyl alcohol solution, if air bubbles appear, try to remove them before adjusting the volume to the full volume on the volumetric flask. Then, close the lid and shake well to mix. Students will obtain a polyvinyl alcohol solution with half the concentration. That is, from the original stock solution of 15% weight by volume. In this flask, the polyvinyl alcohol solution will be 0.75% weight by volume. Then, we will prepare polyvinyl alcohol solutions with concentrations reduced by half repeatedly, until the desired concentration is reached, which is 0.19% WV. First, we will prepare a 0.38% solution. Students will pipette 50 milliliters of this 0.75% solution from the flask and pour it into the next flask. Then, adjust the volume with distilled water to the marked line of the volumetric flask. After students have prepared all three polyvinyl alcohol solutions, 0.75, 0.38, and 0.19%, they will pour the remaining stock solution into an empty volumetric flask. Next, we will prepare distilled water, which we will use as the solvent. First, we will measure the viscosity. The solvent is distilled water. We will then measure the viscosity of the polyvinyl alcohol solution at the lowest concentration, 0.19% WV. We will then gradually increase the concentration until we reach approximately 1.5% WV. While waiting, please immerse all solution concentrations in a temperature-controlled bath. It is important to read the temperature of the temperature-controlled bath. We will use this temperature reading. Next, we will pipette the water solvent into A viscometer. This instrument is called a viscometer. There are many types of viscometers, but the one we are using is an Ostwald viscometer. First, pipette. 10 milliliters of water into the viscometer to rinse it. Pipette. Another distilled water. To measure the viscosity of the water. Note that we are not directly measuring the viscosity of water. We will measure the flow time, which is the time it takes for water to flow from the top point, called point A, to the side point, called point B. Then, we will pipette the solution. The viscometer must be held upright. With the large cylinder facing the person who will be pipetting. Tilt the pipette and insert it into the large cylinder of the viscometer, ensuring the tip of the pipette touches or is in contact with the viscometer. Try not to hold it straight down, as this can easily cause foaming in polymer solutions. Then, let the solution flow into the viscometer. After pipetting the solution into the viscometer, we will set up the viscometer in the temperature-controlled bath. First, insert the rubber tube into the large cylinder. Then clamp the large cylinder and the viscometer to the large case. Immerse the viscometer in the temperature-controlled bath, ensuring the water level slightly above point A. To set up the viscometer, check that it is upright by comparing it to the float. Prepare the viscometer, which is immersed in a temperature-controlled bath. The viscometer will remain parallel to the float at all times. Once ready, we will blow the solution inside the viscometer from the large tube to raise it above the red level. You can observe the level of the solution in the small tube gradually rising. Then, blow the solution slightly above the red level. Next, remove the rubber bulb. Then, cover the tube with your hand. When you are ready, release the cover and start the stopwatch. The substance will flow from the top level, level A, through the capillary tube inside the viscometer. You will see a capillary tube in the small pouch. When the substance flows down from level A, above, to level B, below, stop the stopwatch. This is the flow time for one concentration of substance. After completing the experiment once, repeat it without changing or resetting the equipment. Begin by blowing the substance from the large pouch up above level A, as before. After completing 2 repetitions, we will change the substance. We will start with the lowest concentration, 0.19%. Then increase to 0.38%, 0.75%, and 1.5% WV. Before changing solutions, first empty all the old substance from the viscometer, then rinse with the next solution for the experiment. Let's assume we're using distilled water. Pour all the distilled water out, blowing it all out through the small bulb. Then pipette 10 ml of the 0.19 solution into the large bulb. Swell by blowing from the large bulb to the small bulb, then blow out all the solution. Pipette the 0.19 solution a second time for the experiment. And repeat the experiment using the same equipment as for the water experiment.